If you had a magic wand, what's one thing you'd change in athletics?
The ability to earn money should be spread wider across the sport.
It is no secret that for most sports fans, track and field might as well only exist when the Olympics come around.
What would you say the average athlete is earning?
Probably next to nothing. I don't think they don't really earn much.
Youngsters like OJ, who was a British champion, who is not funded. You got people like James DeSolu in 2016, who was a British champion, who is not funded.
A lot of the athletes that are at an Olympic level, but they're not household names, will be making a significantly less than that. I would hazard a guess that kind of the average might be more like $30,000 a year.
You know, this sport is just nuts. You earn nothing, and then you tick like one box and fall over the line, and all of a sudden you get paid. And it's like, well, so many people can't afford to get there.
But there will also be people who make an Olympic Games who don't get paid at all.
So I'm gonna just come out and say it. The pay in pro track and field is trash.
I'm a professional athlete. I run track and I run on the roads, and I love this sport. But we have some real problems on our hands. Track and field becomes one of the most popular sports across the world, typically every 4 years when the Olympics is held and people watch to see who takes home the most prestigious accolade in sport, an Olympic title. How fast can they run? How far can they throw, jump, or vault? It's gotta be one of the purest sports and one that's the easiest for kids to access and start out at. However, track and field is dying. There is a growing theme at national and international top-level meets of rows of empty seats in stadiums. It's losing the battle for exposure against other sports. We have a serious number of Olympic hopefuls and Olympic athletes struggling to put food on the table, many of them with part-time or full-time jobs, forcing their training setup to resemble a more amateur status. And there's a serious lack of funding availability, with only a select few on governing body funding or sponsorships that fully pay their bills. That's a lot. It's also not everything. I appreciate that there are also long rumbling discussions about the competition format and season also needing a change up too, but for this video, I'm going to be focusing on the biggest problem facing our rising elites and professionals, how they can afford to train and live to be the best athletic version of themselves. And later in this video, I'm going to talk about how YouTube, the very platform you're watching this video from, could be a real game changer in propelling this sport forward for the athletes and the fans. But we'll get to that later. So first up, traditional funding of an athletics career can come from a few different sources, from government body funding pots to sponsorship deals and race appearance fees and prize money. Funding from governing bodies is very limited. After the last Olympics in Tokyo, British athletics funding for the following year left out top Olympians like Tom Bosworth and Jess Judd. And there were no male 400 runners on funding whatsoever. The criteria for getting onto this funding is governing bodies' belief that athletes can achieve a medal at least in one of the next 2 Olympic Games. If football were funded off that premise, only the teams likely to win their league or cup would receive funding. So the bar for funding is an incredibly high one. The other way to access funding as an athlete is through sponsorships. The top athletes, your Olympic dead sets, mostly have shoe contracts and other sponsorship endorsements with healthy base salaries and bonus payments for records and podium finishes at big meets. We don't know exactly what these athletes are being paid because they all have to sign NDAs or their contract is void, which makes it hard for athletes to know what their market value is, but reports estimate that non-medaling Olympians might be on between 30 to 100k, and of course, agents will take 15% of that. Now, those that are wildcards or gunning perhaps for the next Olympic cycle can hope to scrape by on smaller contracts if they're lucky. Or they might just have their kit and shoes provided but without the money. The reality here is that the middle class is almost non-existent. The pay falls off a cliff very, very quickly. So you've got athletes who have represented their country, perhaps at the European Championships, with all the talent and the potential to get to the Olympics, but no funding to make that happen. With the exception of those winning global medals or major marathons, most of our professional athletes are looking to other jobs in order to pay for essentials like rent, bills, and food. You then add in training related essentials like coaching, travel to races and training camps, healthcare, gym costs, and physiotherapy support. Things are getting expensive. What about prize money and appearance fees? No sponsor? No problem. Just go and win your money. Prize money on the racing scene can be lucrative for our top athletes, taking win after win. Once again though, it declines pretty quickly from there. Earlier this year, 1500 meter world champion Josh Kerr hit out on the prize money on offer at the World Indoor Championships, with $40,000 on offer for gold, not being up to scratch compared to other sports. Now, he actually won the 3K indoor title title at the World Championships, so secured that money, with second and third receiving 20k and 10k respectively. And whilst that's a fantastic hourly rate, after agents take their cut, that money isn't exactly life-changing. You've then got the Diamond League meets, which are the top-class track and field events on the calendar, offering 10k for the win, cascading down to $500 for 8th. There's 15 of them over the summer, but not every event will be on the schedule at all of them. So whilst the women's 100 meters is run 9 times over those meets, the men's discus is only included 5 times. And in a lot of the events, there's more than 8 competitors. So if you fall outside those top 8, you're earning nothing. And somewhat controversially, the Olympics is offering prize money this year to the gold medal winners in athletics. Once again though, this is one of those that's polarizing the pay situation. Unless a real outsider wins, those taking home the money for taking gold aren't the ones struggling to make ends meet. And on the road scene, winning a marathon major would result in a nice payday. The New York Marathon win provides 100k, which is likely to be matched with a bonus for doing so in an athlete of that caliber's contract. This then cascades down to just $2,000 for finishing 10th, but getting into the New York Marathon for many will be a challenge enough. Without the right connections and a good agent, you're not even on the start line. And then you have appearance fees, where an athlete is paid just for starting the event. Mo Farah was rumoured to have been paid up to 500k for being on the start line of his first London Marathon. But for anyone other than a household name, appearance fees are not typically offered these days. Which leads me on to the problem of low exposure. Consumption of sport is going through a period of change across the board. TV ratings for many sports are down year on year as linear coverage becomes less relevant and social media sport engagement becomes more natural to fans. Track and field might blow up on social media every Olympic cycle, but the exposure it gets outside of that is nothing in comparison. It's not all doom and gloom though. 5.2 million people tuned in to see the first Sunday of the USA Olympic trials on NBC, which is the biggest audience for 12 years. And the new Drive to Survive style sprint series could be huge for bringing more fans into the sport. I do think track and field needs to be very careful though not to slip further behind compared to other sports, with the Diamond League being put behind a $30 per month paywall in the US, and the European and British Championships being relegated from BBC One to the less accessible red button in the UK. Shoe companies and sponsor funding pots are not going to grow without that increased potential marketing reach. Which leads me to another challenge athletes are facing in accessing those budgets. The rise of influencers and influencer marketing means the game is changing for brands looking for exposure. You compare an Olympic finalist with a few tens of thousands of followers, one that may even be fairly well known in their home country, but that gets limited TV exposure and competes maybe 10 times over the season, with a fitness vlogger who shares content multiple times per week, holding live streams, challenges, and community run clubs with their 250k engaged audience. Who is the brand going to endorse in order to get sales? Companies aren't providing sponsorships to athletes for charity. It's a marketing investment, which they, of course, are expecting a return on. And you've got content creators on the front foot of this very much still evolving industry. But this doesn't have to be a problem for athletes. And this is where I'm going to pivot slightly and run it back to my story and how I got here and how creating YouTube videos has genuinely been the answer for me, allowing me to pursue a career as a professional athlete thanks to this fantastic community I've built over the last 2 years on my YouTube channel, and why I think it could really be the answer for other athletes. So first up, I sound a little bit different, and that's because part 1 of filming this video was before the British Championships this weekend, and part 2, which I'm filming now, is after competing and cheering my friends on at the British Championships. So I've kind of used my voice up a little bit, so just bear with me. So in January 2022, I finally plucked up the courage to start creating my first video and launched my YouTube channel, thanks to a lot of encouragement from Daniel, who of course remains the presence that he is behind the camera, making these videos so great today. And I can't quite believe that recording this video today, I'm in the position where YouTube are partnering with us to support the creation of this video today. Literally pinch me now. And I didn't start my YouTube channel for it to be the answer to me being able to live like a professional athlete. I started because I wanted to share my journey of being a woman in the track and field space, trying to make it, and because I wanted to inspire others too. I hoped that by sharing the highs and the lows, the races, the training, and my honest experience of it all, that I might just be able to motivate someone else watching to lace up their trainers and go for that run too. It's quite wet on this wall. Didn't really think this through. Hello, little snail. Now, as much as it pains me to bring up my first ever video because no YouTuber wants to watch their first ever video. It's embarrassing. We're all a little bit rusty, and yeah, it's just best not revisited. But what followed that, video by video, was this community that started to grow of people that were genuinely interested and that watched these videos and interacted with them. And I've been able to interact with some of my audience through the comment sections of my videos. And some of you have shared that I've motivated you to get out the door for a run when you've not really fancied it, or to start running for the first time, or perhaps coming back to it after a long hiatus. And some of you don't run, but you're here to watch, enjoy the videos, and to support me. It honestly makes me emotional just verbalizing that, because when you're creating, you're so on the go all the time. You're focusing on what's next. What can we create that's gonna be fun to watch? How can we innovate? What can we share? How can we make this different? How can we make this fun? What's the next project? What's the next video? It's so easy to get caught up in that because it's fun, of course it is, and it's this kind of wheel of content: create, produce, release, interact, create, produce, release. But sometimes you have to stop and take a step back and just reflect on it all and appreciate how amazing it is. And doing that, taking a step back, looking at what's in front of me, it's just this fantastic community. Yes, it's an online community, but I've also met some of you guys in real life. There were the Love the Grind signs and the Love the Grind cheers at the night of the 10,000 meter PBs. I've met subscribers and supporters of the channel at loads of the races I've done, and I've also met people just in the wild when we've not been creating a video. Me and Daniel have been out for dinner in Manchester, and someone's come up to us to say, hey, I watch your videos, I really enjoy them, or something you shared has actually impacted me personally, and thank you for creating what you create. And that's something I never anticipated or really appreciate could happen from creating these videos in our garden, in our house, on the track. It's something really special. And what's also super special is the fact that creating on YouTube is the reason I'm able to be a professional runner. And it's my answer to many of the problems I outlined earlier that a lot of elite track and field athletes are facing. And it feels like a very privileged position to be in, but it's also one that I've worked very hard for. I don't need to rely on someone deciding whether I get funding or not, or by a sponsor taking a punt on me, because creating on YouTube means that I can financially support myself instead. And I'm also creating my own exposure and boosting exposure for the sport in the process by sharing content about the sport and about what I'm doing, which I hope makes a small difference to other athletes as well. And thinking back to when we started all of this, one of the things I always remember and think about quite a lot actually is remembering hearing Daniel say, one day this is gonna make us some money. And hand on heart, I did not believe him. I don't think I even thought that we would keep creating videos for longer than a few weeks or a few months, let alone ever make any actual money from doing this. Like, how does that even work? And I can also remember the first day that we got monetized on YouTube and seeing that earnings analytics tab arrive on our YouTube studio. And I think the first earnings that trickled in at the end of that day was probably enough to pay for a meal deal at best. But that didn't matter. It was just so cool and quite surreal to see that we'd kicked that first domino over, if you like, and got the ball rolling on making money from creating content about something that we're passionate about. Like anything, it has to start somewhere, and that start is gonna be small. But I think that's the point where I knew that as the channel continued to grow and provided the views kept coming in, you know, people continue subscribing and enjoying the videos, the earnings would grow alongside that. And, you know, one day it's a meal deal, months later, it was our electricity bill. And I still find that quite crazy today, especially when I have to explain to people what it is we do, because it kind of doesn't sound real in a way. We make videos about what we think is fun and what we're passionate about, and yeah, we make money from that. It started raining. What kind of blows my mind the most though is that sitting here today, I have to credit starting this YouTube channel with some of the performances I've actually had in my running career since we started making videos. It's meant that I can go on training camps and take my work with me. It's funded those training camps, my training resources, you know, physio costs, supplements, and it's also brought me coaching clients through people connecting to these videos and then reaching out to me, and that's then grown my business. It's also indirectly brought us opportunities from sponsors coming on board to support these videos, and it's also connected us with other YouTube creators. Some of them are in our niche, some of them aren't, but all of them are people that we now consider friends. It's not for everyone. Creating and sharing so much of what's personal to you and so much of your life is personal, and some people don't want to do that, and I fully respect that. But I would also love to see some more elite athletes tapping into what is literally here for the taking. I think there's a huge audience waiting for the next long jump YouTuber or 400-meter hurdler who's going to bring us with them on their journey to jumping 7 meters or making it to the next World Championships. All of those people who tune in to watch the Olympics every 4 years in their masses are interested in that kind of content. They're interested in athletes' stories and what happens behind the scenes and what it takes to do those amazing things that most people can't do. Once you build an audience and it grows and you then become monetized, sharing that journey to whatever it is, hitting a British record or just learning a new event perhaps, creating and sharing that experience, whatever it is, can legitimately start replacing the need and the pressure for a lot of people to maintain or reach the status where you can then hold down a contract. You've got the direct financial gain, which feeds into improved performances when you apply that to your training, your competition, your whole setup as an athlete. And then you've got the indirect financial gain from connecting your story and your content with potential brand partners and sponsors who can then come on board and boost that potential earning capacity and support. And then once you're regularly creating, sharing, engaging people in the sport, you're contributing to that shift in exposure. The more athletics content that's free to view, the more tickets to our competitions will be sold. The more people will be talking about our sport, which in turn could create more budget for athletes. And then the cycle continues. And then you've got new avenues of sponsors. Not only do you become more attractive from an exposure standpoint to apparel and shoe sponsors, but you'll also have sponsors coming on board for the videos themselves too, which expands and diversifies the ways that you're able to support yourself professionally. I would love to see a track and field world in a few years' time that has been brought back to life by us taking matters into our own hands and demanding value from self-created success, from engagement, from reach, from exposure, and by not putting up with just what we might be able to access through the old school traditional routes of funding and support. Am I saying this could solve all of the problems that track and field is facing today? No, I'm not. That would extend way beyond this video. But from an athlete who is able to train like a full-time professional athlete, but without the traditional shoe contract or deal, but thanks to the audience I've built on YouTube, it could well be the answer for many other elites and sub-elites looking to make it to the next level. And the coolest part, there is no cap on the number of people who can tap into this. If there were 100 more track and field creators on YouTube, with a good chunk of them in the top 1% of their sport, all of us would benefit. Which is why today, instead of asking you to please subscribe to my channel, I'd like to encourage you to check out these other creators instead. Some of these channels are well established, some of them are Olympians, some of them are the absolute cream of the crop of their sport and their discipline within that sport. Others are just starting out on their creative journey, and perhaps they're up and coming athletes as well. Categorically, a rising tide floats all ships. I don't want to see track and field die, and you don't want to see track and field die, so let's not let it. YouTube is the resource at all of our fingertips to build back this sport to where it needs to be through this community and to pay the athletes at the center of it. Please share this video, give it a like, and add your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's help YouTube do its thing and push this video out to as many people as possible. Long live track and field, and love the grind.